Welcome back to Heart Emotion. This is episode 3 on the E36 and everything that I've done to the car so far. In this episode, you're going to find out what we've actually picked out to do, which has given me so much joy. And if you stick to the end of the video, you'll actually see a really cool surprise as chosen by you guys. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So to give you guys a recap, I bought one of my dream cars, a car that I've always wanted since I was a kid. If you missed that one, make sure you watch the first episode because it gives you an idea as to why I love this car so much. In the second episode, I went through 36 things that were wrong with the car, and as you know, as we're on to the third episode, these are the things that I'm addressing. So we're going to tick them off one by one, which is going to be really cool. And the one thing that was clear as day was that this car was super low, and it was not really undrivable, but it was really tough to drive. In fact, the car was so low that I couldn't make it onto petrol station island silver bump things. It was ridiculous. So what I ended up doing was I spoke to a friend of mine, and for the time being I said, let me get rid of my stance suspension and let me put stock suspension. So a friend got in touch with me and he said, hey, I've just bought a stock E36, I've got stock suspension, I want to buy your coilovers. And I said, cool, let me do that for you. So I ended up grabbing his suspension, and then I started the journey of taking my car from stance spec all the way to stock height, or as they're called, bride height. Now the whole process of this was made really simple because I met up and partnered with the machining man. They're a really cool machining shop in Kailami, and they said that helped me take off the stance suspension and put on the stock suspension. So it was a little bit tricky to get the car onto the ramp because the car was so low, we had to put blocks and build it bit by bit to reverse it on there. But once it was on that sort of hydraulic lift, I actually got a really good idea of how low that car was. And to my amazement, once we took off the wheels and we saw the suspension, there was virtually not a lot of scraping, but also one of the things on the E36 was that sometimes you get structure damage. So when the shock tower is mounted and it constantly gets hit, then you need body reinforcement. But lucky for me, the body was absolutely fine, and what we saw was a really good body shape. So we didn't need to do much work there. Then the process of taking off that suspension was quite easy. We eventually undid a couple of bolts and I watched the guys do it, and why I made the pros do it is because I wanted to learn how they did it so that the next time I do it, I know the process, which makes it quite easy. Now what I found really cool with the coilovers was how easy it was to remove, because I thought it was quite a complicated process, but in the E36 everything is bolt-on. I really call it the Lego car. Anything that you want to put on the car, as long as it's made for it, just slots in very perfectly. Now once we got the stock suspension next to the coilovers, we saw a difference. Now I know a lot of you are going to ask, why did I do that? Well, it's a simple thing. I want to get the car riding and driving perfectly before we go into a suspension setup that we want to live with on the car. It was really cool to see the suspension side by side and the difference that coilovers make to stock suspension. It was much bigger versus the smaller coilover setup. But once we took it all out, put it side by side, compared it, and then put on the stock suspension, I really wasn't bothered by the height. I know it's a little bit high and the front looks a bit scared, but I know the end goal of the car. And from there, I was happy with it because the most important thing, I could ride and drive that car anywhere, including having no risk of me scraping the underneath of the car. So I was happy with it, we were all happy with it. And then we moved on to something that was very important and what I wanted to do since I got the car, or since the car was ever made in 1995, the Freedom car. I don't think this car has ever gotten the treatment of being clean. So I called up Kailami Detailing and I said, listen, I need to give this car the 5-star treatment. Let's get it spiffy clean, give it your best. And that is exactly what they did. Now it comes down to my favorite part and everyone else's favorite part, because we all like seeing something super dirty get super clean. But I didn't know this because when I had the car, I took it to a car wash and I thought, hey, this car is pretty clean, until I saw the process of decontamination. Now what this did was it stripped away the harsh dirt that was just caked on and stuck onto the car, and that revealed how much of years of dirt was actually built up onto this beautiful white paint. The more they poured it on, the more it stripped away, and it really showed me that this car had so much life underneath, and I couldn't wait to see it, because after that it was straight to the clay bar where they started stripping it away with a special sort of clay material. I'm not a detailer, so forgive me if I get this wrong, but it was really cool. They started stripping away and I was like, this car looks amazing. But this was only the decontamination stripping process, which means that this is going to get way more cleaner than I thought. So the car had been tucked away for days, if not weeks, at Kyalami Detailing, and I popped in every now and then to see what was going on, but I never got the full picture because it was always stripped and nothing was put together until the final moment when everything was done. The interior was steamed, the body was absolutely clean, and it was rolled out into the sun, and I saw a completely transformed car. From what I saw, from what I thought was a clean E36, this transformed its look 10 times over. So now that you've seen how much effort I've put into the E36 and why I've been so quiet, you'll know that this is going to be an absolutely epic car when it's complete. But we're going through this step by step, so you get to see perfection until the end. And it takes me back to a couple months ago where I asked for a tiny little Easter egg. I asked on social media for suggestions for a number plate, and I went through a whole stack of them, and I eventually found one that stood out, and I knew that was going to be the one I was going to stick on my car. And trust me, when you see what I've put on the E36, you're going to love it just as much as I do. Thank you to everyone who's made this possible, especially keeping my dream alive, because without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do cool things. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to 36 Reasons. I hope you guys love how this car came out because it's really just, I've got no words. But if you thought that was cool, I've got one more surprise for you because it's coming out in episode 4. Inside this mystery box is 100% original BMW factory parts. That's right, we're going to be replacing all the 36 things, remember that? We're not going to put generic stuff, we're not going to put anything from an internet website. We went straight to a BMW dealership, we ticked off the things we want, we put it in this box, and in the next episode, you're going to see me fit this and make this factory fresh.